Hey, God bless you. Welcome to the Faces of U.S. Missions, where we connect with individuals behind U.S. missions, diverse ministries, and initiatives.
The impact we can have together is greater than any local church, and that's what U.S. Missions does. That we've got to win the lost. We've got to win this community.
Hey, God bless you. Welcome to the Faces of U.S. Missions, where we connect with individuals behind U.S. missions, diverse ministries, and initiatives. I'm Pastor Choco, the Executive Director of U.S. Missions, and today I have the privilege of sitting down with the one and only from Texas.
Come on now.
The Assistant General Superintendent of the Assemblies of God USA, Pastor Rick DeBose. Welcome, Pastor.
It's good to be here, Choco. I'm not only glad to be here, I'm glad to have you in that chair. I'm glad to have you here leading this movement and leading what God's doing in our nation through U.S. Missions. You and I know things they don't know.
That's
but
right.
One of the things I know is that you and I have talked about this for a while.
Yeah.
Not at your initiative, at my initiative, that I felt for a long time this was God's purpose for your life.
Yeah.
You probably did too, but you were cautious with how you handled that information. And I've been a little more aggressive with you because I felt this was God's will. And you just don't know how excited I am that you're leading U.S. missions for the Assemblies of God. Our best days are right in front of us. God's got his hand on you.
Well, Pastor, I appreciate your support and always your wisdom and your encouragement regarding our lives, mine and Elizabeth. But for the U.S. missions that are out there, many doesn't need an introduction. It was a superintendent of North Texas, pastored out there in North Texas, and was a treasurer. But tell us a little bit about yourself and the role that you play in the Assemblies of God, because there's other responsibilities that you carry as assistant superintendent.
Yeah, the assistant superintendent job is kind of a unique job because it can move and shift with whoever's in that seat and based on the need of the general superintendent. Every leader has gifts and abilities that it's his strong spot, sweet spot.
Right.
And obviously Doug has those. What the assistant does is come in to help with those and to fill in some gaps and to make some things happen, to oversee some things. So, as you know, my responsibility includes oversight of all of our ministries and all of our publication and even our warehouse and distribution, because all that's connected. Probably my passion, as you know, has been the BEP, the Bible Engagement Project. Right. It's been a real passion of mine because I felt like it's something we could do to improve our effectiveness in discipleship. And it's working very well. Just so you know, we're now in over 17,000 churches with the Bible Engagement Project.
Praise
it's
the Lord.
Exploding.
Yeah.
My other passion is the World Prayer Center.
Yeah.
And couldn't do that without U.S. Missions. Our connection there is dynamic and effective. And so both of those are part of what I do, unique to me. The next assistant superintendent may do something else.
Different, yeah.
But for me, it's right, and that's what I do.
And recently, you just now taken on the closure rate of the church in the United States to stop the closure rate. Briefly, just tell our viewers what are you taking on, and what are you hoping from all that?
Yeah, very good. So if you look at our numbers, the last number of years, we've averaged planting for over a decade, well over 300 churches a year.
Right.
So we should be growing the number of churches, but we're not, because we're also closing 300 plus churches a year. When we looked at that, we realized some of those closures shouldn't have happened. There was another way to handle that would have actually brought them back to life and made them effective. So rather than losing that territory to the devil, what do we do to go in and retake that heel and establish it and say, no, we're not going to close it.
That's right.
So there's some things we learned when we were superintendent in North Texas that I brought together. I pulled together a team of really sharp people and a lot of tools that were already in the building, just not being used well. Yeah. And we created the Before You Close process. We met with the superintendents about 3 weeks ago and shared with it. They are all over it. They are excited about it. They're implementing. And I believe that here's our goal.
Right.
That we would increase our open church rate to about 4%, and that we would decrease our closure rate to about 1% of the total number of churches, which would leave us with a 3% growth per year.
Come on.
We believe we can do that. And with that kind of growth, by the year 2035, we will have over 15,000 churches in the Assemblies of God. And that's our goal.
Amen. Amen. Yeah. Pastor Rick, tell us, do you believe that in the United States, that missions is needed here in this country? Where do you see the most need in the most area here of our country?
That's a great question. First of all, yes, it's needed.
Okay.
Because there's things we do together as one church that are different than just what the local church can do. So U.S. Missions allows churches to connect across every line, across district lines, across cities, across whatever, to work together for a common goal. And then together they can appoint those who are going to lead the different parts of that process, and together they support that process. We call it U.S. Missions.
Right.
So whether it's Teen Challenge or whether it's Chi Alpha or whatever place it is, it's on behalf of the whole church at work. U.S. Missions is very important.
Right.
Because individually a church can make a great impact, but when it connects to the church at large,
Right.
the impact we can have together is greater than any local church. And that's what U.S. Missions does. It brings us all together on the same page, going in the same direction to accomplish a God-sized purpose. So I firmly believe in it, and I'm excited about it.
You know, as a superintendent that you were in North Texas and you were a pastor, how was your church involved? Or when you were a superintendent of North Texas, how was that U.S. Missions involved in your district?
Let's start with the church. As a local church, when we developed our annual missions budget, our annual missions direction, we would divide up into percentages. How much is for the U.S. and how much is for the nation.
Got it.
And we made the U.S. very important to the process. So we had a certain part of our budget that was set apart for Chi Alpha, a certain part that was set aside for Teen Challenge, for even for the RVers in their ministry, because they're so dynamic. What they do is so unique and so beneficial. We developed those processes. We supported Youth Alive. We supported those different ministries. We pulled them together, and we made sure they were supported because they were going to help us do our first call to reach our own Jerusalem.
Come on.
And we considered our city Jerusalem, but everything outside of that, Samaria and Judea. And we needed U.S. Missions to do it. So we, at the local church, it was a part of our process. We had local missionaries from the U.S. come and speak and share and let us know what was going on. It was dynamic. And then we connected to world missions. So all of it was a part of our whole dream. We considered that full thing. So when I became a superintendent, then it was a little different in the fact that those people that wanted to be missionaries now had to have my approval. Had to go through our process. So we have a good process in North Texas that they go through. They come in, and I got to be more involved with them personally in their work inside of the district and their work across district lines, and I was so impressed. Some of our U.S. missionaries could pastor great churches. They could do whatever God called them to do, but their call is to help the church at large to be effective. And I just fell in love with them, and I still do.
Pastor, tell us, how do you hope to continue partnering with U.S. Missions in the future, especially as you sit as assistant superintendent, BEP, AG Resources, all these things that you lead? How do you hope to continue partnering with U.S. Missions?
Well, a number of ways. First of all, personally, I will always be a financial supporter of U.S. Missions. I support a number of missionaries like you do, and on my list, a number of those missionaries are U.S. missionaries, Chi Alpha missionaries, of course, World Prayer Center missionaries, all of those that I support. So I'm a supporter. Number two is I interact with U.S. missionaries because much of what we do at the national level puts us in direct connection with the people that work out of U.S. Missions doing what they do. So if it's the World Prayer Center, obviously, because I oversee that, I spend a lot of time with U.S. missionaries. I see their work, I see their value, I see their effectiveness. I do meetings where they go with me, they help me do what I do, they participate in the process, and when I'm gone, they're still there to keep it going. So I have that relationship with them. Chi Alpha is obviously a passion of our movement, one of the most dynamic things we do. So when I'm in other states, other cities, other places, I love to connect with Chi Alpha. I love to see what they're doing and participate. Now, Youth Alive especially, because Youth Alive falls under youth ministry and works with youth ministry. So being over youth ministry, we have now thousands, literally thousands of missionaries on our high school campuses that are an extension of a U.S. missionary.
Right.
So a U.S. missionary with Youth Alive then inspires, enables, and empowers,
Right.
works with, and releases young people, 16, 17-year-old
That's
young
right.
people, to reach their campuses.
That's right.
So they're missionaries that we don't pay, but they're missionaries under U.S. missionaries, and the dynamic of that. And so we participate with that, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah, Lee Rogers is who is
Lee Rogers.
He's the senior director for Youth Alive, and he sits on with us over here, but he's part of youth department over there, and he shares the stories about what's happening in the middle schools and high schools because they trained the local church
That's it.
youth department to be the missionaries in those schools, and it's phenomenal things that he's doing there. As one of our spiritual leaders and elders of our movement, what do you hope for U.S. missions in the United States?
Yeah, great question. I think, first of all, a clear vision
Yeah.
of why U.S. missions exist and where it's going and how we help. If we, U.S. missions vision is not something that's done outside of the local church. It's done on behalf of the local church. So the local church, there's a lot of things we could do as a pastor of a local church. There's things I couldn't do. There's things I couldn't get to.
Right.
We could have had our own Teen Challenge program.
Right,
But why would we when we have a solid program that we can finance,
That's good.
we can participate with, and then when I have men and women come to the Lord who need that kind of care, I've got a place to put them. I want U.S. missions to always be there for the local church, and I want the local church to celebrate what U.S. missions brings to the table.
Mm-hmm.
Teen Challenge, one of those areas.
Yeah.
We can't, as a local church, reach all the colleges. If I have a college in my area, I can have some impact on that campus. But I don't know how to do it the way Chi Alpha knows how to
That's
do
right.
it.
That's
And
right.
so when I bring that team with me and I participate, and then participate with them in campuses outside of my area, I'm fulfilling that mission and that mandate. U.S. missions is the key to it. It's still my responsibility as a local pastor, but I can fulfill that responsibility in partnership with U.S. missions. U.S. missions partnership with the local church allows me to do both of those things. It allows and helps me reach the campus of my high school. It allows me to help build things through RV. Our campground in North Texas is quite a campground, and we spent millions and millions of dollars building it. But we saved millions and millions of dollars by going at the pace that the RVers could keep up. I know when they come, they're not going to work 12-hour days.
Right.
These guys they've done that in the past.
Yeah.
Those days are over.
They're over.
They're over. But what they do well.
Yeah.
And if I can wait on them, they'll save me millions of dollars.
That's right.
And so they have. They have saved us millions of dollars. I support that, and by doing that, I'm saving the kingdom
Come on.
millions of dollars, and I'm giving people with a unique gift and opportunity a place to plug in. I love all of that. So I will support all that. The church should support all that. And what U.S. Missions brings is an overarching vision to reach all the lost people in America. And a part of what that does is keep the church from forgetting that it's about lost souls.
That's right.
And it brings the church back to the reality that we've got to win the lost. We've got to win this community. And then when they would be a little overwhelmed by that vision, how are we going to do it? U.S. Missions comes and says, we're your partner with this. We're going to help you do this. We're going to provide for you people. We're going to provide for you structures. We're going to provide for you ministries. We're going to give you the help. The church in turn remembers to support U.S. Missions
Come on.
financially and prayerfully in
Yeah.
and also to preach about it, because some of the young people in their pews are going to be called to be a part of this process
Yeah.
in days ahead, generations to come.
You mentioned RVers, and just this year alone, 2024, 48 projects they've been involved in.
Wow.
48. And close to $10 million have been saved
Come on.
from the local churches.
Incredible.
All they put up is the material. RVers come in, what you were referring to. 48 projects have been involved. You mentioned the university. There's 4,000 universities in the United States.
Yeah.
We're in 276 of them
Wow.
with Chi Alpha. Combined with all the other college outreaches out there, we're probably in 2,000. So there's 2,000 universities without a missionary
Wow.
in those schools. We believe in U.S. missions that if we reach the university, we can reach the world for Jesus, right? That's what we're hoping and doing through Chi Alpha, Church Mobilization, Teen Challenge, Youth Alive, impacting our culture. Any last words that you want to say to the pastors and leaders from our movement as we close our time here today? You're one of our leaders. God has gifted you, Pastor Rick, and maybe some last thoughts that you want to give towards our people, our viewers today.
Thank you, Choco. I do. My word to you is pretty simple. Pray for Choco de Jesus. Pray for the hand of God upon him. God has moved him into this position in the last few months. But prior to this, God's been working in his heart his whole life. The ministry he built in Chicago, how God used him there, was all training. It was very useful and very valuable, but it was still training for what he's doing today. He's got relationships in the nation. He's got political relationships. A series of things have been going on in his life for a long time that have prepared him for this moment. But as well prepared as he is, none of us can be what we're called to be without the Spirit of the Lord. For it's still not by might nor power, but by my Spirit. We must undergird him with our prayer. We must believe in him. I don't know that you know him. You may not have had the same opportunity I've had to sit with him and play golf with him. Pray for his golf game too, by the way, but let's don't stay there very long. But I really want you to pray for him. I think God has brought him to the kingdom, and I know we overuse this statement, but I believe it for such a time as this. I believe what God is doing in the United States of America, what he's doing in the Assemblies of God together, the national movement and the local church, is very dependent on what God is doing in Choco and why he brought him here. This morning I was reading the story of Samson. I thought out of all the judges that are listed before you get to Samson, he's the only one who had a visit, whose mother had a visit from an angel. That makes it unique. There are those unique leaders at unique times that God has his hand on. Choco is one of those. I pray for him, and I ask you to join me in prayer for God to give him wisdom, who to have on his team, how to lead, give him ideas, let him have thoughts, and to have favor with us, favor with cities, favor with national government, that everything God has called him to do will be accomplished in the next decade. I believe the next decade is going to be a dynamic decade for the Assemblies of God, for America, and for U.S. missions. And I want you to pray for him. I want you to pray for Elizabeth, his wife. I want you to lift her up in prayer. Not having your husband around because of his schedule and the demand on his life can be difficult. She's quite a lady. She can handle it, but she still needs our prayer and our support. Pray for his children. Pray for his grandchildren. Pray that his family and his home would be so blessed and so protected that he would not be distracted. He would be able to focus and enjoy and celebrate the goodness of God everywhere he turns. But I believe he's the man. I believe U.S. missions was made for him and him for it. This is a moment, and we need your prayer. And follow his lead. Don't be afraid to follow his lead. You may not understand new direction that he brings because we've not done it this way before, but trust God's got his hand on this and give it the opportunity to work. And let's just see what God will do in the future. That's my word.
Pastor Rick, thank you for your time today. I know you're a busy man. You're right about the golf part of it. You've taught me these last few years how to play golf, but you've taught me how to love the Word of God. You've taught me how to seek God's presence as one of our spiritual leaders. So thank you for coming today with us here at U.S. Missions. And for those that are watching, thank you for tuning in to the Faces of U.S. Missions. I am Pastor Choco, the Executive Director of U.S. Missions, and together we seek, save, and send. God bless you all.